What is going on, my new bets? And today we're going to look at the tank mechanics for MLMD. So I have already done the DPS side. If you need to look at that, you can look in the video description or in the playlist for that mechanics video. But today we're going to cover the tank, which I'm Eric, my paladin tank. So for first balls, the first thing you're going to do is make sure you're going to be dodging those cone attacks. So for the cone attacks, you're just going to want to either move left or right of it. I usually shield up and then move left or right, so therefore I stop doing whatever attack or animation I'm in, and I could just move left or right. Now when it comes to the imps, the first one's going to be behind the balls, and then you have the next one that pops up will be in the center, and the last one will be at the door that you entered. What you're going to want to do is you're going to rotate around the balls, so therefore the cone attack is facing away from the rest of the group, whether it's just the DPS or the DPS and the healer. You want it to be facing away from the group, so then that way they can attack and do damage and knock down the imps without worrying about the balls hitting them with that cone attack, which will one-shot them. While you're doing this, you want to also make sure you pay attention to the ground. You do have the fire pools that spawn, so you do need to make sure you're dodging that cone and facing that cone in the right direction so it doesn't kill your group, as well as make sure that you're dodging those fire pools. Now those fire pools won't kill you as a tank as long as you're set up properly, but it will create a debuff on you that'll make it so you'll take more damage. So that means the balls, the imps, and if you manage to get hit by a cone, you'll take more damage and most likely it will down you. The first boss is pretty easy for a tank. Again, the only thing that you have to worry about is dodging that cone. You dodge that cone, you probably won't die. And depending on if your group has the damage to knock down the ad phases quickly, you'll be good there too. The group that I'm with have pretty good ad control. They knock them down. I think I take one death, but nonetheless, the thing that's going to kill you the most as a tank here will be the cone attack. So make sure you're facing the cone attack properly, you dodge out of it, and your first boss should be pretty easy. Okay, here we are coming up on 40%. This is a big tank mechanic that you need to follow here. So the boss is going to disappear and spawn in one of the 4 random corners. Now when this boss spawns, it's going to have a line attack on you. Your goal is to take that line attack and keep it away from the group. As you see here, there's a line attack. It's away from the group. Anybody between you and the balls during that line attack will take that hit, and it's going to be a one-shot for them. It is a big hit for the tanks as well, so you do kind of want to do a block, or for a paladin, you can throw your wings up and that will help you out through there. But during this phase, all you're going to do is keep that line attack away from your DPS and your healers and help out a bit with the ad control. So you grab a couple of ads, run around in a circle, stay close to the edges, and when you see that line attack up, make sure you get to one of the side walls so that way your DPS and healers aren't taking big hits. Imps will spawn during this phase, so that's again something that your DPS want to focus on. That's something I'll go over. That's something that I go over on the DPS POV mechanic guide. But for our tanks, again, you just want to focus on that boss. Make sure that line attack is facing away from your DPSs and healers, as well as make sure that you're dodging the cones. After that phase, your boss will come back and you'll tank like normal, dodging the fire pools, dodging the cones. Now, one thing that I think a lot of tanks don't know about the boss is when you're up close and personal to the boss doesn't do a whole lot of damage. It's when you get far away from the boss does the boss do a little fire projectile, and that attack actually does more damage than just the regular hits that you get from the boss. So ideally as a tank, you want to stay up close and personal unless you're trying to move this boss. Now this boss doesn't like moving a whole lot, so in order for you to get the boss to move, you actually got to move like halfway across the map, and that's the only time that this boss will move. A couple of feet left or right, the boss will stay where they are. They'll just shoot the fireballs at you. Now there is an ad that I like to try to tank here, is the Incubus. The Incubus does stun your teammates and will cause them to walk into fire pools or walk into things that they don't want to walk into and take some damage. So I tend to try to pick up the incubuses as much as I can just to alleviate that burden off of my healers and DPSs and hold on to that. Now here we're going to come up, we have 2 imps. Now as a tank, what I like to do is I like to hold on to the imp that's closest to me and send the DPS to the far side to fight that imp. That way they can all group up on one imp, burn it down really quickly, and then they could transition to the imp that's closer to me. So here we are. Unfortunately, we were unlucky. We got 3. So this is usually a bad situation, especially since the 2 outside are Hellfires and the inside imp is Rimefire. And if you don't know, if a Rimefire and a Hellfire imp close together, they do white noise, which tends to kill pretty much everybody. So here I do take a death, but what I tried to do here was I moved the Hellfire into the far corner so it can be far away from the Rimefire, but it looked like one of the other DPSs pulled the Rimefire a little bit close to the Hellfire, and it created the white noise. So that's one thing as a tank that you'd have to pay attention to, is where your imps are. You may need to move your imp, so therefore you don't get the white noise and everybody gets it down. So here we go again. We got another imp up, which was a Rimefire while they were still fighting a Hellfire. So what I did is I tried to pull the Hellfire as far away to the other side to minimize how many downs they were going to take. Now I knew the team was going to take it down regardless because they just were how close those imps were. But once I moved it, they were able to focus on that Rimefire over there. Once they killed that Rimefire, they then came over and focused on the Hellfire that I had. So those are things that you got to kind of do as a tank. You got to kind of think on your toes a bit because you are going to have to move them. A lot of these dungeons nowadays aren't cut in stone. They are not simple. They're not the same every time you run them. They can be different because again here, sometimes you can get 2 imps, sometimes you get 3 imps, sometimes they can be all 3 of the same, sometimes they can be a mix. So you got to kind of be on your toes. It's not just cookie cutter. Every time you run the dungeon, it's going to be the same thing. So here our DPS falls off a little bit. We do lose one of our DPSs, but it's again the mechanics are still the same. You'll make sure that cone attack and that line attack is facing away from your teammates. Your teammates are going to DPS down the remaining imps and whatever air phases come up. And you're just going to wash, rinse, repeat all the way until the boss is dead. At about 5% or so, then you'll try to go all in with your team. Hopefully your DPSs are ready, healers are ready, and hopefully your arts and mounts are ready. And you'll go all in. Once you go all in, hopefully, as long as you have the burn and there's not too many downs from everybody else, that way you can just burn the boss down and get rid of that last 5% and don't have to worry about too much more. And as you can see, I'm focusing on just keeping that line attack away from my teammates, keeping the cone away from my teammates, trying to dodge as many red circles as I can. We have another Hellfire imp up, and I got caught right in the middle of no man's land, so I got hit by that cone attack there and it did down me. I was able to get right back up and get my aggro back. Unfortunately, I did take fire pool, so therefore I got a little bit more damage coming towards me. There's also a Hellfire rip up, making the enemies do a little bit more damage to me. Again, we're down on a DPS, so the ads were hurting a little bit more, but we did manage to get it all done. And now we just got to kill these last few ads, go see what we got for a drop, and go over the second boss. Alright, now the second boss is probably the easiest of the 3 bosses for you to tank. First thing you're going to do, you're going to run right in, grab the aggro of the boss. Now what I like to do is stay here in the middle. This allows the team to DPS down the first summoner that comes in. If you don't know the difference between the summoner and the warlock, definitely check out my DPS POV guide for this. But for the tank, you're going to come right on over here to where these chains are. You're going to sit in this spot. You're going to just sit here. There's several different spots you can sit as a tank, but this is where I like to sit, and this gives us the best chance to DPS down the summoners when they spawn in, because when they do spawn in, they run in and come around or behind the boss, and then that way you can just sit there all day and your DPS don't have to move too much, don't have to run all over the place. Now, as far as the push-pull goes for the tank, again, I went over this mechanic for the DPS because they have a little bit more to do than us tanks do. But as far as the tank, you just want to block, whether it's the mini block or a big block, you know, your wings or dig in for fighters. You just want to block it because it can push you off, and if it pushes you off, you know it's pretty much a wipe for you. It's an instant death. There's no coming back from that. So it's pretty much the only thing that you have to watch for as a tank is the push-pull. Everything else, you're just gonna swing. You're gonna just swing away and hopefully not fall asleep while you're doing it, because this part of the dungeon, in my personal opinion, is extremely boring and it will put you to sleep. So 10%, every 10% up to 50%, there's the summoners and warlocks will spawn. Once you get down to 50%, from 50 to 20%, you'll get 2 summoners and 2 warlocks. And then at 20%, you'll get 2 summoners, 2 warlocks every 5%. But outside of that, I mean, this is super easy for a tank. At the very end, it may get kind of crazy. You may have a bunch of dogs up or whatnot. And to help your DPS, you may want to try to grab that aggro. But, I mean, this is really a wash, rinse, repeat for a tank. You come to this corner, you sit here, you swing away, you block the push-pulls, you can block the big overhead hammer slam attack. And that's it. Your healer heals you through it. And that, I mean, again, second boss is the easiest boss for the whole dungeon. Now, what I like to do a lot of times is when a summoner spawns, I'll try to throw either my art or my mount at it to help the DPS burn it down a little bit quicker. I don't need it for survivability, so I use it to help the DPS burn down the summoners so we can not get dogs, and therefore everybody's life is a bit easier. Now, with the way they changed the blocking system, where when you're blocking, the animation or the stance for it is so minimal that sometimes you won't know if you're blocking, right? So if any case you don't know if you're blocking, the best thing to do would be to just run to the other side of the boss. Now, only do this during the push-pull phase, so that way you're not instantly killing your team. If you run to the other side of the boss during that push-pull phase because you don't know if you're blocking, if you do get pushed, at least you get pushed to the center of the map instead of off the map, and then that way you get to continue to fight, you get to continue to tank, and then you don't have to wipe or you don't have to reset. All right, here we are approaching the last 10%. So usually this is where the dungeon, or at least second boss, starts to get really crazy. Because again, remember, every 5% from 20 down to 0, you get 2 sets of summoners and warlocks. So most groups, they try to burn it at 10%, and they'll go through the 10% phase, and then they go through the 5% phase, meaning they'll have 4 warlocks up, 4 summoners up, and those summoners can summon 2 dogs apiece. So that means you'll have 8 dogs up, 2 summoners, 2 warlocks, and there's a lot going on. And if you don't kill the summoners in time, they'll spawn another set of dogs. So this is where, if you're going to burn it at 10%, make sure you can burn it at 10%. If not, it'll get super crazy. Here the group is trying to burn it. We go ahead and set our arts and mounts at 5%. Now we do have the 2 warlocks up. We do have the 2 summoners up. However, dogs have not spawned in yet. Now the dogs are spawning in. But luckily we have 3 wizards. So they're pushing those dogs off as soon as they pop up, making it where it's not so hectic. But at this point of the dungeon, it can get crazy hectic. As you can see there, I wasn't 100% sure if my block was up, so I did rotate to the other side of the boss. Luckily, my block was up, so I didn't get pushed. But that is, again, a tip that you can use as a tank in case if you don't know if your block's up or not. Okay, here we are at last boss, the dragon himself. So the main thing you're going to want to do as a tank is you want to focus the poison. So your primary objective for the tank is to focus your poison. Now this is one of my earlier tanking videos when the mod first dropped. So I wasn't using the best strategies that I learned throughout the end of the dungeon. However, this is a perfectly fine demonstration on what to do for the tank. So when you first go in, everybody wants to be all in the middle, including the tank. After that, you're going to go to the outside. Now for the tank, you're going to want to kite the dragon around the outside edge of the arena, leaving the inner portions of the arena for your DPSs and for your healer. Now at 20%, now at 10%, your dragon starts to do the spit. Now, you know spit's coming when the dragon jumps. So therefore the dragon just jumped, he's getting ready to spit, right? Ideally, you want the dragon to be pointing towards the wall, which you'll see a little later on in the video. But you'll see that he will then go from right to left with the spit. So if you do get caught off spot or the dragon jumps in a weird spot, you or your group will go from right to left, and that way you can dodge the spit. On top of that, anytime you see those crystals go up, Every other crystal would be an article. So here we go. Dragon does his spit again. He did jump. He did his spit. Luckily, I got under him before he was able to get me because I was in the wrong spot. Again, he goes from right to left. I ran to the right side of him. But as a tank, as long as you get under the dragon before he spits, you're good. So 99% of the time, that's what you're going to do. You'll see the dragon jump, and you're going to want to run under his feet. So there he goes. He spits. I run towards his feet. Boom. I dodge a spit. Then the crystals go off. We DPS like normal. Then we RDM. And this is what we're going to do. Wash, rinse, and repeat all the way down to 0%. Now, for the tanks, this is the most busiest dungeon or the busiest boss in this dungeon because you got to, 1, manage your aggro. 2, you got to dodge the spit, what happens a lot. 3, the dragon, almost every attack that this dragon does to the tank is a knockdown. So if you get knocked down, you're not doing no damage. And if you're not doing no damage, you're not building aggro. And if you're not building aggro, you get how it goes, right? You lose it, the DPS takes it, they die, yada, yada, yada. The objective of the game, the objective of this boss is to have no downs before 20%. So as long as you can do that, you're good to go. No downs, no stacks, you're good. As a tank, you're going to take stacks. There's a couple of different mechanics that are in here that are unavoidable to the tank, and it just sucks. And then there's another mechanic that you'll see sometimes, but you won't physically be able to see it, where there's 2 green balls that are floating around the map. If they hit you, they will give you 2 stacks, but when they do show up, they don't physically show up in the game. So if you get hit, you just get hit, you take 2 stacks. It does suck. Again, the biggest part for you as the tank is to always try to have the dragon facing the wall, regardless if it's spitting or not, right? So he was just facing the wall. I faced him towards the wall. I moved to the left a little bit. Well, actually, I moved to the right a little bit. And boom, the poison was not aimed at the DPS, wasn't aimed at the healers. The only bad part about this dragon and this boss in particular is it does not follow its own mechanics. So if you face the dragon to the wall, you'll see sometimes this dragon will go and do its own thing and will look right at your DPS. Nobody would have taken aggro from me, no nothing. Right, here we go again. He jumped. I aimed to spit at the wall. DPS's healers are safe. I'm safe. Everything's good. So that's what you want to get good at when you're tanking this boss, is being able to control where that dragon spits. If you can control that spit, that will increase the likelihood if you get a completion on this dungeon tenfold. If you can't control that spit and it's just shooting wherever the heck it wants to shoot, it's going to be bad. Now, this mechanic here where the dragon shoots the 3 lines, he was supposed to jump and stay where I was, and I was going to jump under his legs and I'll be safe, but he jumped backwards again afterwards. So if something like that happens, all you got to do is just turn around, run to the edge of that poison ring, and 9 times out of the 10, you'll be in a safe spot. Usually you'll get stuck if you don't move. If you don't move in the dragon to where you can jump under his legs there, you'll get caught and you'll get hit by that poison. You'll take like poison stacks crazy fast. Here we go. I didn't get him technically to the wall, but I did get him faced away from the DPS and the healers there, so everybody was safe and I was in a good spot. Again, this is just like second boss where you're going to wash, rinse, and repeat. The boss, again, like I said, does not follow his own mechanics, so you will see him jump. He should have faced you, should have faced the wall, but he will turn around and fight some other people. Here we go again with the poison lines. This time I moved a little bit out of the way, but again, I did the same thing. Ran to the back end. Unfortunately, the DPSs stayed in the middle and somebody got one-shotted from the poison breath. However, it was just the 1 down, so they were able to manage it. Here we are coming up on 20%. Again, at 20%, there's the white noise, which is unavoidable. So at this point, healers, tanks, and DPS are all taking this stack that makes us take more damage. So here it's very important to make sure you aim that poison, which I did aim the poison here, but the dragon decided to turn back a little bit, but it did not hinder anybody, did not kill anybody. Here we go again. He did a double jump this time. So this time I had to run under his legs. Like I said, you run under his legs, you'll be in a safe spot. We're coming up on 10%. This is where things get a little bit tricky. This is where groups tend to fail. If they're going to fail, it's going to be that last 10%. There's a couple of deaths already. There's a couple of stacks. As a tank, you just need to focus on making sure that that boss is in the right spot You are in the safe spots for the candles. You're in the safe spots for the jump. Here's a jump. Not in the best of positions, but the DPS moved out of the middle. I ran under his legs and I was safe. At this point, just about everything the boss is doing to you as a tank is probably hurting, depending on how hard your DPS can hit. If you get up to the ballpark of about 6 or 7 stacks of the white noise, the claw attack, the wing attacks, those will start to hurt. They'll start to do about 50% of your health. Again, while you're doing all of this, you're trying to dodge that poison. That was not the best of positioning. That's probably the worst positioning I probably could have done in this whole video so far. He was aiming directly in the middle. Luckily, the DPS and healers were able to see that. They were able to move to the side and get out of here. This should be it coming up on our last little bit that we need to do on the balls. Everybody still survives. We still have all our DPS. We still have all our healers. Here's a jump, poison, facing out the wall. Everything's good. I run under the feet here. Coming up, dragon's dead. Good to go. One big helpful thing is it being in a party chat. So if you're in a party chat, it can help tremendously when that dragon jumps and it's in the wrong position. You can call that out, and then your DPS and healers can move appropriately so they don't die from the breath. If you missed the last episode in this series, you can catch it right here in the top left. Check out the playlist in the bottom left for all the videos in this series. My latest adventure is in the top right. I had a lot of fun recording it, and I think you might like it too. And YouTube has handpicked a video for you in the bottom right. I'm curious to know what it is, so check it out and let me know if they chose wisely. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Thank you for tuning in to the Noob Network. I'm Noob Hard, and I'll see you in the next one.